The twin suns of Zeria Prime cast a soft violet glow over the grand palace, making the towers shimmer like crystal. Inside the palace, Princess Lyra moved gracefully through the long hallways, her silver robes flowing behind her. She had spent her entire life learning the ways of leadership, diplomacy, and control. Her people respected her for her wisdom, but she had never known anyone from beyond the stars well enough to trust them fully. Today was unusual. A human had arrived. Humans were rare visitors to Zeria Prime, often seen as clumsy and unpredictable. Lyra had been told firmly, no human would ever gain her trust. They were outsiders, unpredictable, and sometimes dangerous. But despite the warnings, there was something unusual about this particular human. Jason stepped off the shimmering landing platform, adjusting his simple uniform. Unlike the polished visitors Lyra was accustomed to, Jason looked plain. He didn't wear ornate armor or a jeweled uniform, but he had a calm confidence in his eyes and moved with careful attention, showing respect to every creature he passed. His presence felt different, almost honest. Lyra had prepared herself to say no from the start. She would meet him only briefly as duty required and nothing more. Yet before the formal introduction could even begin, an accident changed everything. A sudden tremor shook the palace floor. The high ceiling of the main hall groaned under the strain. Dust fell from the chandeliers and one of the supporting pillars began to crack. Chaos erupted. Guards shouted orders and servants scrambled to secure the priceless artifacts that lined the walls. Without thinking, Jason rushed forward, assessing the situation. He saw a group of palace workers trapped under a falling beam. With surprising strength, he lifted the beam just enough for them to escape, then guided them to safety. Lyra watched from a distance, her sharp eyes widening in surprise. No human had ever shown such bravery in her palace before. One of the cracks in the ceiling grew larger, threatening to collapse entirely. Lyra realized she could not move fast enough on her own. Her heart beat quickly as she considered her options. And then she saw him, Jason. He glanced up at the crumbling ceiling and immediately calculated the safest path. "Princess Lyra," he called out, though he didn't hesitate. "Follow me, quickly." Lyra hesitated for a moment, her instincts telling her to maintain her distance. But the instinct to survive was stronger. She followed him through a narrow corridor, stepping over rubble and dust. His hand briefly touched her elbow to steady her, and she felt an unexpected warmth. She pulled back slightly, reminding herself of her duty. She was a princess. She could not trust a human, yet as they reached a safer chamber, Lyra caught her breath and looked at him again. He was sweating, his clothes dirty from the debris, but his face was calm, focused, and unafraid. He didn't seem like a visitor. He seemed like someone who belonged in danger and could handle it. Once the immediate threat had passed, the palace guards hurried in. They examined the damage and whispered among themselves about the human's courage. Lyra realized something. Despite her careful training to ignore outsiders, Jason had already impressed her people. Her own advisors looked at him with respect, something they had never shown to a human before. "Your Highness," Jason said gently, bowing slightly. "Are you unharmed?" Lyra straightened, hiding her quickened pulse. "I am fine. Thank you," she replied. She had expected herself to feel indifferent, but she noticed her own curiosity growing. Who was this human? How could he be so calm in a crisis, so confident, and yet so kind? Over the next few hours, as the palace repaired itself, Lyra was forced to spend more time with Jason. She watched him carefully. He didn't act like other visitors who demanded attention or praised himself. He helped wherever he could, speaking softly to frightened workers and calming the younger guards. His words were simple but effective, and his eyes seemed to notice things others missed. Lyra found herself observing him secretly. When he thought no one was watching, he smiled at the children helping to carry supplies. He offered water to a tired worker, and even carried a fallen vase with careful hands so it would not break. Lyra had never seen such humility in anyone who stood in her presence. Yet her mind reminded her again and again, humans were unpredictable. She had to maintain her distance. She was the princess. Duty came first. But her heart was whispering something she could not yet name. As evening fell over Zeria Prime, the palace quieted. Lyra and Jason were brought together for the first formal meeting. The chamber was lit with soft, floating crystals that reflected the purple skies outside. Lyra sat on her elevated throne, her posture perfect, her face calm and regal. Jason bowed as custom demanded, but there was no stiffness in him. "Princess Lyra," he said politely, "I am honored to meet you. I am here to represent humanity and seek friendship between our worlds." Lyra nodded, keeping her expression neutral. "You are far from your home, human. Zeria Prime is not accustomed to outsiders," she replied. Her voice was firm, measured. "I have been instructed to refuse personal contact with visitors of your kind. Your people are unpredictable." Jason inclined his head, accepting her words without offense. "I understand, Princess. I will respect your rules. My only wish is to ensure the safety and well-being of your people." For a moment, silence hung between them. Lyra studied him, looking for any sign of arrogance, any trace of deceit. But she found none. All she saw was honesty, courage, and something else she could not yet name. "Very well," Lyra said finally, her voice softening slightly. "You may remain under supervision, but no further privileges will be granted." Jason simply nodded. "Understood. I will follow your guidance." The days that followed were filled with small, unexpected events. Jason continued to demonstrate his courage and intelligence, helping solve problems that even Lyra's advisors struggled with. He repaired broken machinery, negotiated disputes, and even rescued an injured alien child during a training exercise. Every action seemed to reflect a quiet strength that Lyra had rarely seen in anyone, human or Zerian. Lyra began to see him differently. She noticed how he listened, really listened when people spoke, how he never sought glory, only solutions, how he moved with purpose yet never pushed himself above others. Slowly her heart responded, though her mind resisted. She told herself she was only observing for duty, but a small, persistent warmth grew within her chest whenever Jason acted with kindness or courage. One evening, as the twin suns set and bathed the palace in deep violet and gold, Lyra found herself alone in the garden. Jason appeared quietly, carrying water for the plants and a small tray of fruits for the palace workers resting nearby. "Princess," he said softly, "may I help you tend the garden? It can be relaxing after the day's work." Lyra hesitated. Her mind said no, but her heart said yes. She allowed him to join her, silently walking among the glowing plants. Jason moved gently, carefully watering each plant and pointing out small details that needed attention. His calm voice, simple words, and steady presence felt strangely comforting. Lyra realized in that quiet moment that she had begun to care. Not for duty, not for politics, but for the human standing beside her. And though she had said no so many times in her life, she now wondered if perhaps her heart had always been waiting to say yes to someone like him. As the night settled over Zeria Prime, the palace quiet and the stars shining above, Lyra looked at Jason, unsure of how much to reveal. She had maintained her distance for so long, but something about this human challenged everything she had believed. Her mind remained cautious, but her heart stirred with curiosity, admiration, and the faintest hint of something more. And for the first time, Lyra wondered if perhaps saying no was no longer an option. Not because duty demanded it, but because her heart might soon demand the opposite. The first part of their story ended there, with the violet sky above and the human beside her, both unaware of the change that had already begun inside the princess. One thing was certain, nothing would ever be the same again. The morning light on Zeria Prime was soft and golden, filtering through the tall crystal windows of the palace. Princess Lyra walked through the grand corridors, her mind still lingering on the human, Jason. She could not deny it any longer. Something about him had unsettled the careful boundaries she had built around her heart. She had spent her life saying no to outsiders, but every act of courage, every small kindness Jason had shown, was quietly breaking down her walls. Jason, meanwhile, was already in the courtyard, speaking with palace engineers about repairing the damaged areas from the earlier accident. Lyra watched him from a distance, noticing the way he patiently explained a solution, gesturing clearly so everyone could understand. No frustration, no arrogance, just calm, steady leadership. She felt something stirring inside her again, an unfamiliar warmth that made her chest tighten. Before she could stop herself, Lyra stepped closer, pretending to inspect a nearby sculpture. "Jason," she called, trying to keep her voice formal, "what is your plan for the East Wing repairs?" He turned immediately, bowing slightly. "Princess Lyra, I have coordinated with the engineers to reinforce the support beams first. That way, we prevent any further accidents." His tone was matter-of-fact, but his eyes held a quiet intensity, as if he truly cared about the safety of everyone here. Lyra nodded, impressed despite herself. "You think of everything," she said softly, more to herself than to him. She quickly adjusted her expression to the calm, regal mask expected of a princess. Jason smiled faintly. "I try my best. Safety is always the first priority." Their daily routines continued in this way, each small interaction building an invisible bridge between them. Lyra noticed the little things, how Jason remembered the names of palace staff, how he made sure even the youngest workers had food and water, how he never took credit for his efforts. Slowly, admiration shifted into something deeper. Lyra caught herself looking for him in every crowd, waiting for his calm presence to bring order to the chaos around her. But their growing closeness did not go unnoticed. Within the palace, some advisors whispered concerns. Humans were outsiders. They could not be trusted completely. Some suggested restricting Jason's access further, fearing that the princess might become too influenced by his presence. Lyra listened to their warnings, her mind torn between duty and the undeniable pull she felt toward him. The tension escalated one afternoon when a distant alarm sounded from the palace perimeter. Scouts reported a fleet of rogue aliens approaching the planet, armed and dangerous. Panic spread quickly among the palace guards and staff. Lyra's advisors argued fiercely, debating defensive strategies and negotiations. Fear filled the corridors, but Jason remained calm. "We need a plan," he said clearly, moving among the advisors. "Evacuate the civilians to the underground chambers first. Then organize the guards into defensive positions. We must protect the palace and everyone inside it." Lyra watched him closely. His decisiveness, his ability to remain composed under pressure, made her heart race. She realized that she had never seen anyone act with such courage and clarity, not even her most trusted generals. In that moment, she understood why her feelings were changing. Jason was not just a visitor. He was someone who inspired trust and confidence, someone she could rely on when the stakes were highest. As the rogue fleet drew closer, the palace was ready. Jason led the defenders, coordinating the positions and strategies. Lyra stayed at the command chamber, observing quietly, but she could not resist stepping forward to offer guidance where needed. She found herself working alongside Jason seamlessly, their actions complementing each other without a word. It was as if they had known each other far longer than they actually had. During the battle, an enemy ship breached the outer defenses, heading straight for the palace. Jason acted instantly. Without hesitation, he directed a group of guards to intercept the intruders and personally took charge of a critical control panel to redirect the palace shields. In the midst of the chaos, Lyra watched him move with determination, his every decision calculated to protect everyone around him. A sudden explosion shook the chamber, sending debris flying. Lyra was thrown to the ground and a piece of falling rubble threatened to strike her. In a flash, Jason lunged forward, shielding her with his body. The debris fell harmlessly beside them and he helped her to her feet. "Are you unharmed?" he asked, concern clear in his voice. Lyra nodded, her pulse racing. For the first time, she felt completely vulnerable in front of someone, and yet completely safe. Her heart was pounding, and she could no longer deny the truth. This human had become more than an ally. He had become someone she admired, trusted, and, against every rule she had ever known, cared for deeply. When the battle finally ended, the rogue fleet retreating after suffering heavy losses, Lyra walked to the balcony overlooking the city. The streets below were safe, the people unharmed, and the palace intact. She could see the gratitude in their eyes and felt a quiet relief. But more than anything, she felt a warmth inside herself, a spark that had been growing since the day Jason had arrived. Jason appeared beside her quietly, not speaking at first. He looked out at the city, his expression thoughtful. Then he turned to Lyra. "The danger has passed, Princess. Your people are safe." Lyra looked at him, her chest tight with emotions she could no longer contain. "Jason, she began, her voice trembling slightly. She hesitated, afraid of breaking the careful composure she had maintained all her life. But she realized that no words of caution or duty mattered anymore. I have always said no to outsiders," she continued. "But seeing you, seeing how you care, how you act, how you protect others, my heart, it says yes." Jason's eyes widened in surprise, then softened with a gentle understanding. He stepped closer, offering a small, reassuring smile. Princess Lyra, I never expected to hear that, but I am honored, and I promise to continue protecting you and your people no matter the danger. Lyra felt a wave of relief and joy. For the first time in her life, she allowed herself to be honest, not to anyone else but to herself. Her heart had chosen, and there was no turning back. The days that followed were filled with a new kind of harmony. Lyra and Jason worked together, not just as princess and visitor, but as partners in spirit. They planned improvements for the city, helped rebuild areas damaged by the attack, and trained with the palace guards. Their bond grew stronger, built on mutual respect, admiration, and a growing affection that neither could ignore. Lyra's people noticed the change too. They admired the human's courage and the princess's newfound openness. Slowly, the whispers of doubt faded, replaced by stories of cooperation, bravery, and the unusual partnership that was shaping the future of Scifi Prime. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the palace, Lyra and Jason stood together on the balcony, watching the soft light reflect off the towers. Lyra's hand brushed against Jason's. She felt a gentle warmth, the same warmth that had stirred in her heart from the moment he first acted with courage and kindness. You have changed everything here, Lyra said softly, her eyes meeting his. Not just by protecting my people, but by showing me that there is more to life than rules and duty. There is courage, honesty, and love. Jason's hand covered hers gently. And you have shown me that trust and respect can cross any boundary, Princess. I never imagined I could find such a bond on a distant planet, but here it is, with you. The moons reflected in their eyes as they stood in quiet understanding. For the first time, the princess did not feel the weight of expectation pressing down on her. She felt free, alive, and certain that the heart had chosen rightly. As the night deepened and the stars sparkled above Scifi Prime, Lyra finally spoke words she had never imagined she would say. Yes, Jason. Yes to you, yes to trust, and yes to the future we can build together. Jason smiled, his heart full. Then we will face it together, Princess Lyra, side by side, no matter what comes next. And so, under the violet skies and the twin moons of Scifi Prime, the alien princess and the human began a new chapter. One built not on duty alone, but on courage, trust, and the surprising, undeniable answer of the heart. The galaxy beyond their world was vast and full of unknown challenges, but for the first time, Lyra knew she would not face them alone. She had said no for so long, and yet, when she truly looked, she found her heart had already replied yes.